Biology is defined as the study of life. Life is recognized by the properties living things have and the processes that those living things perform. So, what is life? There are 8 properties of life. This means that all living things must display all 8 of these properties. Number 1, they must be made of cells. All living things are made of cells. The cell is the smallest living thing that has all of these other properties of life. Number 2, order. Life is highly organized. The flower in this picture is organized in parts that each have a specific location and a specific function. You are also organized. You have a body plan and organ systems that each carry out a certain job. Reproduction. Organisms have to have the ability to make offspring of their own kind. 4, growth and development. DNA codes for the patterns of growth. As organisms change, as they go through stages of life, organisms change. Response to the environment. The Venus flytrap is usually open, but when it feels a fly land on it, it closes to trap the fly and then digest it. The stimulus is the fly landing on the flytrap. The response is the Venus flytrap closing. Energy processing. Organisms take in energy to power themselves. Plants use energy from the sun, and animals take energy from food. Regulation. Organisms regulate many variables in their bodies. For example, this lizard is regulating its body temperature by basking in the sun. You regulate your body temperature internally with your brain. Evolutionary adaptation. Evolutionary adaptation means that all living things have the capabilities to change over time. The seahorse in the picture is so adapted to its environment, its body looks exactly like the coral, and it is very hard to see. This is good for the seahorse because it is not as likely to be eaten by predators. The organisms that are well suited to their environment survive and pass on their genes. Then eventually groups of organisms become well adapted to the place that they live. So let's take these properties and ask the question, is a virus alive? This was a very controversial question among scientists for a long time. With the discovery of cells and the properties of life, we have an answer. Let's look at each property. Number 1, made of cells. A virus is actually only made of DNA and protein, so it is not made of cells. Order. The virus is very organized. They have DNA on the inside, surrounded by a protein coat, so it does have order. Reproduction. Viruses have DNA that is used to make more virus parts, but they need a host to do the actual work for them. So they cannot produce offspring of their own kind without the help of another species. So they cannot reproduce on their own. Growth and development. Once a virus is made by a host, it does not change. It stays the same until it finds another host to make more viruses. So it does not grow and develop. Response to the environment. Viruses have the ability to recognize their hosts. The stimulus is recognizing that they can infect that cell, and then their response is injecting their DNA into that cell. So viruses do respond to their environment. Energy processing. Viruses don't use energy that they get for themselves. They let their host cells make new virus parts for them. So the host cells are using energy to produce parts of the virus. The virus is not processing the energy on its own. Regulation. Viruses don't regulate themselves either. If an environment is unstable for them, they cannot function anymore. Evolutionary adaptation. Viruses do evolve rapidly. The flu virus changes every year. Mutations in the DNA allow them to have new properties. This is why you need a new flu shot every fall. Life is organized into 3 domains. There are 3 domains of life: domain bacteria, domain archaea, and domain eukarya. A domain is the largest group, and inside of each domain are smaller groupings called kingdoms. The domain bacteria has only one kingdom, called eubacteria. That prefix EU stands for true. These are very common bacteria. The bacteria that live inside your bodies and that you come in contact with every day are in this kingdom. The domain archaea also has only one kingdom in it. The kingdom is called archaea bacteria. These are extreme bacteria. They live in harsh environments that are, for example, very hot or very salty. The last domain, eukarya, is made up of 4 different kingdoms. The prefix EU again means true, and karya, that suffix, means nucleus. So all of the kingdoms inside domain eukarya have a true nucleus inside of their cells. The 4 kingdoms are kingdom plantae, kingdom animalia, kingdom fungi, and the protists. Kingdom plantae is made up of all plants. These are autotrophs, which means that they make their own food based using sunlight. Kingdom fungi is all of the molds and mushrooms. Fungus are called heterotrophs. This means that they get food from outside of their bodies. Only instead of eating it like you and I do, they absorb it. Kingdom Animalia contains all animals, including humans. Animals are also heterotrophs, meaning they get food from outside of their body. Only instead of absorbing it like fungus, they eat it. Kingdom Protista isn't a true kingdom at all. It is easier to define Kingdom Protista as all of the organisms that have a true nucleus that are not a plant, an animal, or a fungus. Life is organized into a hierarchy. The smallest level of organization is the molecule. Here we see one molecule of DNA. The next level up from that is an organelle. The nucleus is an organelle that is made up of all of the DNA in the cell. Next is an entire cell. This is the smallest living thing. The cell has all of the 8 properties of life. It is made up of many organelles. Next is a tissue. Tissues are made up of many similar types of cells working together. This nervous tissue is made up of a group of nerve cells that are all working together. Next is an organ or organ system. An organ is made up of many tissues working together. For example, the nervous system, which includes the brain, is made up of nervous tissue as well as other types of tissues. Next is the entire organism. This fish is made up of many different organ systems. It has a brain, a heart, stomach, and a swim bladder that all work together to make the fish a fish. Next is a population. A population is a group of organisms of the same species. So all of the fish of the same species that live in a specific area make up a population. Next is a community. A community is all of the populations that live in a specific area. So this would include the fish, as well as the mangrove, and any plankton in the water. Communities only include the living organisms in that specific area. An ecosystem includes all of the communities in an environment, as well as the non-living things such as water, air, and minerals. Last and the largest group is the biosphere. The biosphere is the entire planet. The entire planet is made up of all of the different ecosystems on Earth. Every time we move up a level of organization, new properties or functions emerged. The level of the nervous system can only carry out nerve impulses. But when we look at the entire organism, we see the nerve impulses and how they interact with muscles and cause actions. These are new properties that the nervous system doesn't have on its own. If you've ever assembled an IKEA furniture, you've seen this emerging properties in action. On the left, you have the pieces of a chair. Does each piece have the properties of a chair? Can you sit on them comfortably at the table and do your homework or eat dinner? No. Once it is assembled, like the pictures on the right, the pieces work together to form a new property, the ability to sit comfortably at a desk or a table.